Age of Imprisonment's combat has a lot of quirks that are not explained very thoroughly by the game, so I'm here to help you with a mix of basic and some advanced tips that will definitely help you power through Ganondorf's forces. All gameplay shown here is on the hardest difficulty, by the way, so lower difficulties will get even bigger results. Alright, let's just jump in. Dangerous attacks are supposed to be countered with their respective unique skills, and can also be countered by certain Zonai devices as well. As a very last resort though, they also can be parried or flurry rushed, but it's fairly risky. Just keep it as an option if you're cool and confident about it. If your character has the power surge ability, combo this together with rockets. This can be a really fast way to traverse a long distance across the map. A couple of options tips. There are both functions of auto rations and auto batteries. I found both of these to be pretty useful, but it's really your own personal preference. The pro is obviously you don't need to think about it, which means less menuing is needed, but do keep in mind the cons. For auto rations, sometimes you'll switch characters to one that's not your main character, and then get pummeled using up all your rations. If you have a tough fight ahead with your most powerful or favorite character, they can be out of healing options, leading to a harder battle. As for auto batteries, I often found myself running across batteries in wooden boxes, which reloaded my battery that was barely used, just recently recharged automatically a second before, which in my opinion is a waste of resources. Another option worth looking at is turning on enemy health bars. While it may be a little bit cluttered and less immersive, I found it pretty useful because it's sometimes hard to tell which attacks are more effective and do more damage. Especially as enemies, your weapons, and your level increases, it's nice to know how your power level is doing. The last function to turn on is combo guides, at least in the beginning. I recommend this early on, especially because you're getting new characters constantly. Attack strings can change quite a bit. Once you can do these combos without thinking about them, you can turn these off. But initially, they are great for understanding the feedback loop for how combo strings work. When you break an enemy's weak point, try not to go immediately into the weak point smash. Try to stick around and get a normal attack combo string off. Both examples here started off with the same amount of health on the Bokoblin. It doesn't look like much, but this little extra damage is sometimes just enough to push the weak point smash from not killing to killing. So just make it a habit. It's free damage and free meter. To be safe, I'd say do 2 normal combo strings for most characters. 3 normal combo strings if you're really good and dash cancel well. Remember that not only can you command units to attack enemies or specific locations, but you can also command them to follow another unit. This is useful because if you accidentally forget to command a unit somewhere, it'll be standing there waiting for a command, not helping the fight and not building sync gauge. If there are 2 enemies, try and separate their weak point attacks. If they're both broken next to each other, they will both be consumed up at the same time. So just pump out a bit more damage by breaking one ASAP, and the other's weak point damage will pick up where you left off, letting you quickly break in again and knock out the other weak point back to back. A quick 2-for-1. Use sync attacks at the start of a new fight or after a weak point smash. This is because not only does it do high damage, but it automatically opens up and breaks weak points. So if the enemy is down with the weak point opened up already, it wastes half of the power's potential. There's no bonus damage while they're weak point stunned, they just don't fight back. You'll also start gaining sync gauge for your next sync attack throughout the fight, so just use your resources efficiently. The only exception to this is the Mysterious Construct's sync attack with Zelda. This is a completely unique sync attack that unleashes a barrage of light missiles with every swing, and while it's decent damage on its own, I found it to absolutely melt enemies if they stay still, because all of your missiles hit them with your physical swings if they're big enough. Try and set it up so you have it right as you knock down an enemy, then go absolutely ham by stuffing this Sacred Power shotgun right in their face. Special attacks have been nerfed since Age of Calamity and don't do quite as much damage as before. All of that damage went instead into sync attacks. You should instead think of special attacks as a My Turn button, as it interrupts everything an enemy does and stuns them for several seconds, including major bosses. So if you see something you don't like and you don't have other options, bust out your special and tell them to sit down and relax. Zelda and the Mysterious Construct with the one-handed sword have an immediate upper hand because they both have access to the bow and arrow, which can quickly interrupt certain enemies shooting weak points at any time. Just one more additional tool to slow the enemy's roll in a hectic fight. Now let's get into the elemental chaining system. This might be slightly confusing or overwhelming to understand, but getting a hang of this is how you get the best damage and crowd control in the entire game, so don't skimp on this. The 4 main elements in Age of Imprisonment are water, ice, shock, and fire. Enemies can be affected by ice, shock, and fire, and have a meter that can build up when affected more by that element. But it cannot build up water. Water is the catalyst element that triggers most of these reactions. Once one of these built-up elements are maxed out on an enemy fully, then they will get different effects, such as being stunned in place, frozen in place, or burned while taking damage over time. The enemy will then become a sitting trigger for another elemental reaction, and this is when it gets slightly complicated, because some elements don't react while others do. To simplify this though, the moment an enemy gets an element fully applied, hold R and see which elements pop up. Any of these applied after will trigger an additional elemental chain, like fire melting frozen enemies, or water electrocharging shocked enemies. The 3 chains that work together best though are shock, ice, and water, not just because they freeze or stun the enemy, but these combinations can create an additional, separate reaction entirely on their own. You can see this when you place a shock emitter or ice emitter in front of a hydrant. This doesn't require any enemies. These ice or shock explosions are really powerful. They massively build up that element's gauge on the enemy, do decent health damage, and great weak point damage. To finally add to this, the wind element can react with every element except water. Wind is more of an element extension rather than reacting directly. It creates a whirlwind that infuses with the element it touches, such as a flame emitter on the ground, or even an enemy that's frozen can trigger this. Okay, so what gives? I don't really care about all these reactions, I just want the best way to use it. Well, I got you. I made a specific combo that borderlines between powerful and broken, that compounds all these massive reactions and chaining into one quick combo, that crowd controls, interrupts attacks, and does massive damage on its own, not even accounting for the weak point attack that's almost always guaranteed. To do this, first pull out the frost emitter, then quickly drop it, then quickly pull out a fan for a split second, then quickly pull out the hydrant and attack twice. You're going to do this hydrant and 2 attacks 3 times in a row. This combo works around the game's internal cooldown to create 4 ice explosions back to back that both fill the enemy's ice gauge and do additional damage. This same combo can also be used with shock emitters. Getting 4 of these explosions is actually a pretty tight window, and weapon types with different characters will change the 2 attack timing, but with practice and some extension abilities later, this becomes a little bit easier. Again, this works well with shock and ice, but not quite as well unfortunately with fire. Just change it up how you see fit depending on the enemy's weakness or resistance. The last tip helped me gain the upper hand and beat all the endgame content, so I'm hoping that it'll help you in your battles as well. Of course, as usual, for everything else, keep it here on GameSpot.